How can you forgive me so easily? I thought you would be furious with me.
I was never angry with you. I was sad because I was afraid you lost your way.
My toxic personality trait is that I love holding grudges. Like, I still hate this kid I grew up with who slept over at my house one time and accidentally reset my Twilight Princess save file right before I was gonna fight Ganon, and who still, to this day, will not admit that he did it on purpose. Pat, we're all adults now. I know you did it on purpose. It's okay. Just grow up and admit it. But something I swear that I've learned in adulthood is the power of forgiveness. Not just in strengthening my bonds with other people, but selfishly, the way that forgiveness can increase my own quality of life. I learned this partially through the experience of growing up, but also in large part due to my favorite anime. These are shows which deal with complex themes around forgiveness, like why is forgiving important? When should you forgive and when shouldn't you? And how do you forgive? Like, really forgive someone. Anime, like in general, deals with complex themes that often don't have very clear answers. And in shows with drama, death, and betrayal, it's not uncommon to watch characters struggle with their perception of themselves and others. Some characters fall off the cliff into the darkness of revenge, while others climb through that darkness and find the light of forgiveness. But either way, these shows teach us what forgiveness really means. Psychologists generally define forgiveness as a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance towards a person who harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness. Because forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean condoning or excusing offenses. Forgiveness isn't something that just happens. It can't just be a choice. It's a process, and ultimately, it's an art.
だが、許すよ。Because I love you!
There are a lot of reasons to forgive. When you're steeped in a grudge and you're like actively replaying and reliving those events from the past in your head, it has a detrimental effect on your body since you're essentially putting yourself in fight or flight mode all the time. Like, your body isn't always great at discerning between what's a memory and what's actually happening in real time. And in that sense, forgiveness isn't for the benefit of those who have wronged you. Rather, it's for your own benefit. By forgiving, you're giving yourself permission to stop replaying and reliving traumatic events from your past and begin a new chapter in your life. And I think this is something people misunderstand about Aang's philosophy of forgiveness in Avatar: The Last Airbender. And yes, I know Avatar isn't an anime, but it was part of my anime journey, and I'm not gonna apologize. Although I do hope that after this video, you can forgive me. That's so corny. That's so bad. Aang's choice to forgive and the way that he preaches forgiveness isn't about whether the offender deserves it or not, but for his own inner peace. He knows that holding on to anger is self-destructive. When he forgives, he frees himself from the emotional burden of others' actions. Like, Aang's commitment to pacifism and his refusal to kill Fire Lord Ozai highlights the power of forgiveness and mercy. By choosing a non-lethal way to defeat Ozai, Aang demonstrates that forgiveness and compassion are stronger than vengeance. It's something he preached throughout the show, especially in the last season, and viewers really come to see how powerful it is to not be driven by hatred and vengeance. Even when it's not easy, forgiveness and mercy is his default. And similarly, Gon never once holds any malice towards his dad for being an unbelievable deadbeat. Actually, he's overjoyed when he sees him. He doesn't ask for an apology even when all the other hunters are yelling at Jing to say sorry. Gon doesn't think about it nearly as much as Aang does, but in his relationship with his dad, forgiveness isn't even a question. And it's the reason why their relationship is even possible and even kind of touching in those last few episodes. And I'll admit that forgiveness might not always be the answer.
Don't bother apologizing because I will never forgive you.
Some people say there are things you just can't forgive. And while that may be true, I don't think I agree. Like, it might be hard, but you can always forgive. You shouldn't forget, but it's always possible to forgive. And no one has said it better than Cormac McCarthy in the Border trilogy when he wrote, "He knew that our enemies by contrast seem always with us. The greater our hatred, the more persistent the memory of them, so that a truly terrible enemy becomes deathless." so that the man who has done you great injury or injustice makes himself a guest in your house forever. Perhaps only forgiveness can dislodge him. Like in Hunter x Hunter, Kurapika's entire existence is built around revenge. He wants revenge against the Phantom Troop, and nothing's going to dislodge them from his mind. The group we learn is also seeking revenge in their own right, and no amount of Cormac McCarthy quotes are going to dislodge the Phantom Troop from Kurapika's mind. But his path shows the destructive nature of vengeance and the heavy burden it puts on your soul. As Kurapika becomes more consumed by his quest for revenge, he distances himself from his friends and the people that care about him. Hunter x Hunter seems to show that the pursuit of revenge can lead to a loss of self and the alienation of those around you. And as the series has progressed into the new manga chapter, we've really seen how this pursuit of revenge has literally taken over his future. And in Avatar, Katara becomes consumed with the idea of revenge when she has the chance to confront the man who killed her mother. After tense conversation with Aang and letting her rage control her, she ultimately chooses not to kill him. She realizes that vengeance won't bring her peace. Does she forgive him? Maybe not in the way we'd traditionally expect. She doesn't forget, and she scares the living hell out of him. But she shows that even that kind of forgiveness is a powerful tool for healing, and that letting go of anger can lead to personal liberation.
相手に謝らせてしまったことを謝り合っている。
It's obvious that forgiving isn't easy, and anyone who says it is a liar. Hell, even the Avatar, the last airbender, was conflicted about forgiving. But the personal liberation that comes with forgiveness is so fulfilling. When Zuko faces his sister for the final time, he knew he couldn't kill her. Azula was evil, and there was no end in sight for her manipulation, and she had wronged him so many times, but Zuko could not see himself killing his sister. He didn't even want to take away her bending like what happened to their dad, and it didn't really even seem like he forgave her. What he did was show mercy. Instead of killing her or taking away her bending, he allowed her to live on. And although we didn't really see it in the anime, they do deal with these themes of forgiveness later in their story in the comics. And similarly in Hunter x Hunter, even though Gon's reaction to Kite dying was one laden with anger, hate, and revenge, ultimately it did end up with forgiveness. This time, forgiveness of the self. Gon's struggle with anger and forgiveness is central to his character development. His inability to forgive himself for Kite's death and his subsequent rage illustrate how harboring resentment can lead to self-destruction. Ultimately, Gon's journey teaches us that forgiving oneself and others is essential for moving forward and finding peace. And it wasn't until reuniting with his dad that he learned how to actually do it. And that's kind of the question here, right? How do you forgive? Like, how do you really forgive someone? Well, fuck if I know. Like, sorry to disappoint you if you thought the ending of this video was gonna be a panacea for all bitterness. I've gotten better at it. I know deeply that it's better to forgive than to hold grudges. And I know that knowing that fact makes it easier. It's easier to sympathize with people, and it's easier to find reasons to move past being hurt. But it isn't easy. None of this is easy. Unfortunately, you have to work at it. But at least you're in good company, right? I mean, none of these characters from Avatar or Hunter x Hunter or any of your favorite anime forgave with ease. None of them. And the thing I haven't talked about here, which we all know, is that it's so much easier to forgive when the offending party is sorry. Like, them being apologetic, if it's authentic, can go a long way. And that's its own thing, right? Like, what does being authentically apologetic mean? What does that look like? And maybe I'll get into that in another video. But I think this quote from Jing about how to actually apologize illuminates something cathartic about forgiveness. So I apologize. I'm sorry for ending this abruptly, but I'll leave you with this, Robot Kings.
But friends apologize differently. Do you know how?
Tell me.
You have to make them a promise. Tell them what you'll do next time. And then, you keep that promise no matter what.